Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're going to completely rethink a habit that you and I do every single day without even realizing it. We all share this comforting illusion, right? We come home from the grocery store, and when in doubt, we just toss our food straight into the refrigerator. It's like we treat that glowing white box in our kitchen like some kind of magical preservation vault. But today, well, we are totally shattering that illusion.
Okay, let's dive into this, because putting everything in the fridge on autopilot isn't just unnecessary, it is quietly ruining your groceries. We just naturally assume that cold air equals fresh food. But the reality? The refrigerator actively damages certain items while saving others. By treating it as a universal fix-all solution, we're destroying flavor, accelerating staling, and ultimately, we're just throwing our own hard-earned money right into the trash.
So we need a massive paradigm shift here. For our entire lives, we've been standing in the kitchen holding a piece of produce, asking ourselves, is this safe if I leave it outside the fridge? We have got to stop asking that. The only question we should be asking from now on is, does this food even belong in the fridge at all? Let's look at some daily staples that we've literally been suffocating in the cold.
Take tomatoes. Honestly, this is one of the most commonly mishandled foods in any kitchen. When we toss a tomato in the fridge, we are literally killing its flavor. No joke. The cold air breaks down the exact chemical compounds that make a tomato actually taste like a tomato. It turns it into a sad, mealy mess. If you want to preserve that rich, summery taste, keep them at room temperature away from direct sunlight until they are very ripe. Only then does the chill make any sense.
Then there's our daily bread, which is arguably the fridge's absolute biggest victim. I know it seems super logical to refrigerate it to prevent mold, but the cold air actually dries it out and rapidly accelerates the staling process. If you're going to eat a loaf within 2 days, just keep it in a sealed bag or bread box right there on the counter. But here is the ultimate hack for you. If you need it to last longer, bypass the fridge entirely and use the freezer. Toast it straight from frozen and it comes back to life almost perfectly. It's a total game changer.
And this brilliantly illustrates how the rules for a single food can flip in an instant. Just look at avocados. Like bananas, a rock-hard avocado needs to stay out on the counter to ripen properly. But the very second you slice into it, boom, the environment has to change. A cut avocado must immediately go into the fridge, covered tightly, or it's going to oxidize and turn completely brown within a few hours.
Let's move over to the pantry staples, the ones that never ever need the fridge. Onions and garlic, they absolutely demand a dry, dark, well-ventilated space. Moisture is their absolute worst enemy, so keep them out of the fridge and definitely out of sealed plastic bags. And what about potatoes? Well, they actually hate the fridge. The cold temperatures chemically convert their natural starch into sugar, which ruins the texture and causes them to brown way too quickly when you try to cook them. Oh, and a quick pro tip. Keep your potatoes far away from your onions. Storing them right next to each other actually accelerates how fast they both spoil.
Now, for a truly mind-blowing historical fact about pantry storage. Ready for this? Honey never expires. Ever. You never need to refrigerate it. In fact, archaeologists have uncovered 3,000-year-old honey in ancient Egyptian tombs that is still perfectly edible today. 3,000 years! All it really requires is a sealed jar sitting out in a cool, dry cupboard.
But we've all seen our honey get weirdly chunky and solid, right? And I bet your immediate reaction is usually to just throw it away. Don't do that. That is just crystallization. It is a completely natural chemical process, and it has absolutely nothing to do with spoilage. You haven't ruined it, and it definitely hasn't gone bad. Just gently warm the jar in some warm water, and it'll return right back to its smooth, liquid state. We also need to rescue our morning brew. Listen, coffee loses its complex flavors in the fridge. The moisture, the constant temperature changes from opening the door, and the odors from last night's takeout leftovers, all of that seeps in and totally damages the beans or grounds. Keep your coffee airtight in a dark cupboard. And the exact same thing goes for olive oil. It doesn't need cold, it needs protection from light and heat. Put olive oil in the fridge and it unnecessarily solidifies and gets all cloudy.
Let's move to the next part and see how this builds. Section 1. The context-dependent foods, or when the rules change.
Take the great peanut butter debate, for example. It actually divides right down the middle into two distinct camps. Commercial peanut butter, the kind loaded with stabilizers, is perfectly fine hanging out in your cupboard, even after you've opened it. But if we buy natural peanut butter, the kind with zero preservatives, that absolutely must go in the fridge after opening. If you leave natural peanut butter out on the counter, those separated natural oils are going to quickly go rancid. It is honestly amazing to discover that the weather outside your home actually dictates the rules inside your kitchen.
For items like chocolate, cucumbers, and eggs, your local climate literally changes everything. In a cool, moderate home, chocolate sits perfectly happily in a dry cupboard. But in a hot summer house, it actually needs the fridge, but tightly sealed so it doesn't absorb weird odors. Cucumbers are tricky because they're cold-sensitive but heat-vulnerable, so in really hot climates, they need to be wrapped up securely in the fridge's veggie drawer to prevent moisture loss. And eggs in hot climates absolutely belong in the cold.
Speaking of eggs, here's a fantastic piece of irony built right into our modern appliances. You know those little plastic egg cups built directly into the refrigerator door? Yeah, actually scratch that. It's the absolute worst place to store them. You should always store eggs in their original carton, sitting on an interior shelf. Think about it. The door experiences massive temperature fluctuations every single time you swing it open to grab a snack. That completely unstable environment drastically shortens an egg's shelf life.
All right, let's pivot to Section 2, the fridge saviors. What actually belongs here?
See, the fridge isn't the enemy. It's just a specialized tool. Let's talk about melons. A whole watermelon or cantaloupe is perfectly fine sitting out at room temperature on your counter. But the absolute moment you take a knife to it, it is a completely different story. Cut melon must go into the fridge immediately. And this isn't just about preserving the flavor, it's completely non-negotiable for our health. A cut melon left out on the counter, especially if the weather is warm, becomes a major food safety hazard within a matter of hours.
Now, what's really interesting about this next one is the invisible chemistry happening in your crisper drawer right now. Apples release a compound called ethylene gas. This gas naturally accelerates the ripening process of any fruits and vegetables sitting next to them. If you don't store your apples separately or in their own designated drawer, they will rapidly over-ripen literally everything else around them.
Here is another genuine surprise for you. Nuts. We so often treat almonds and walnuts like eternal pantry items, right? Just leaving them out in a bowl for weeks on end. Well, while they can survive in a sealed container at room temperature for short bursts, their natural oils are actually highly perishable. For long-term storage, especially if your kitchen gets warm, nuts really need to be in the fridge or even the freezer to prevent those oils from going rancid.
Which brings us to the climax here. Section 3, the 3-question framework.
Before you let anything go into the fridge, just pause and check 3 things. First, consider if the item is whole or if it's already been cut open. Whole items generally prefer the counter, while cut foods almost always need the inside of the fridge. Then, factor in your climate. A hot house completely changes the rules for things like chocolate and produce. Finally, ask yourself if it's still ripening. You want to give ripening fruits room temperature first and cold storage second. So, the crucial point is, this framework replaces the urge to just blindly toss everything into the cold.
Once we grasp this concept, everything changes in the kitchen. We waste way less food, our meals taste remarkably better, and we stop basically throwing our money into the trash bin. The refrigerator is a brilliant invention, but only when we use it correctly. So the next time you're unpacking your groceries, ask yourself, are you going to keep blindly using that glowing box as a universal catch-all, or are you finally ready to use it as the specialized tool it was always meant to be?